The deeper we delve into the history of the Middle East, the more a profound truth emerges. This land, rich in resources, sacred to countless religions, and once the very cradle of civilization, has known precious little stability for the past century. The relentless cycle of wars, ethnic conflicts, religious hatred, and waves of external military intervention forces us to ask, are these merely the chaotic outcomes of local disputes, or a meticulously calculated strategic scenario orchestrated from the outside? Specifically, from the powerful Western nations. In this intricate geopolitical tapestry, Israel's role transcends that of a simple nation-state. It is a strategic military piece, ingeniously positioned as a critical control point at the very heart of the Islamic world. If we envision the Middle East as a vast chessboard of power, Israel stands as an army strategically embedded in the middle of the map. Its very existence inherently destabilizes the region, creating the perfect conditions for the US and UK to exert control over all movements and maintain a permanent base for their pervasive influence. Welcome to Inner Light, where we illuminate the facts society often prefers to keep shrouded in darkness. Let's trace the origins of this complex dynamic, beginning with Britain's pivotal influence. Journeying back to the early 20th century, in the aftermath of World War I, the British Empire seized control of Palestine from the crumbling Ottoman Empire. Instead of fostering a self-governing entity for the indigenous Arab population, Britain actively championed the re-establishment of Zionism. In 1917, the infamous Balfour Declaration pledged support for the creation of a national homeland for Zionists in Palestine. This was far from a mere humanitarian gesture. It was a masterstroke of political cunning, to deliberately implant a distinct ethnic, religious, and cultural entity directly into the burgeoning Islamic bloc, thereby guaranteeing perpetual conflict. Rather than granting independence to the local Arabs, who at the time comprised over 90% of Palestine's population, the British actively facilitated Zionist migration, resettlement, armament, and the development of their own infrastructure. When the State of Israel was declared in 1948, and the inevitable Arab-Israeli wars erupted, the British conveniently withdrew. Yet, the insidious blueprint they left behind remains chillingly intact, a strategic wound that has irrevocably fractured the Islamic world, spawning an unending chain of conflicts. This brings us to the 1948 Nakba, the catastrophic, large-scale expulsion of Palestinians. Every year, on May 15th, Palestinians solemnly commemorate the Nakba, the Catastrophia Day, marking the forced displacement of hundreds of thousands from their ancestral homeland. Following Israel's declaration of statehood in 1948, historical records reveal that approximately 750 Palestinians were either expelled or fled in terror from the relentless attacks, conflicts, and assaults by Zionist forces. Over 500 Palestinian villages and towns were systematically destroyed or occupied, and their rightful inhabitants were cruelly denied the right to return, even after the cessation of hostilities. A particularly horrific event was the attack on Deir Yassin on April 9, 1948, where the Irgun and Lehi forces, extremist Zionist armed organizations, brutally attacked the village, massacring about 107 Palestinian civilians, including innocent women and children. This single incident ignited widespread fear, directly contributing to the mass expulsion of Palestinians from rural areas. The settlement system and occupation in the West Bank. After the 1967 war, Israel seized and occupied the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and the Gaza Strip. Since that time, they have relentlessly constructed hundreds of illegal settlements, now housing over 700 Israelis in lands unequivocally owned by Palestinians. These settlements are invariably protected by the overwhelming force of the Israeli military, leading to systemic violence against the local population. From outright land confiscation and the demolition of homes, to brutal beatings and killings, Israel has systematically expelled Palestinians from these areas, often under the pretense of security concerns or illegal documents, despite many families having resided there for generations. A stark example is the Sheikh Jarrah area in East Jerusalem, where Palestinian families have been forcibly evicted to make way for Israeli settlers. Laws and discrimination in housing management. The Israeli government brazenly applies two vastly different legal systems to Israelis and Palestinians in the West Bank. Israelis are afforded the protections of civil courts, while Palestinians are subjected to the harsh realities of military courts, which boast an astonishing 99.74% conviction rate. Palestinians' fundamental access to water, education, land, and transportation is severely restricted. Meanwhile, Israeli settlers are openly favored. The U.S. consistently wields its veto power in the UN Security Council, effectively blocking any resolutions that might condemn Israel's actions. While nations violating human rights, such as Iran or Syria, face crippling severe punishment, Israel continues to receive tens of billions of dollars from the U.S. annually, despite persistent UN allegations of human rights violations. The EU and UK often adopt a disingenuously neutral stance when Israel launches attacks on Gaza, but react with fervent condemnation when Palestinian armed groups retaliate. Thousands of innocent civilians have perished in these relentless attacks on Gaza. Operations like Operation Cast Lead, 2008, 2009, Protective Edge, 2014, and Guardian of the Walls, 2021, have resulted in thousands of deaths, with the overwhelming majority being civilians. Human Rights Watch and the United Nations have unequivocally condemned Israel for its indiscriminate attacks on residential areas, hospitals, and schools, and for imposing a suffocating blockade on Gaza, effectively transforming it into an open-air prison for over 2 million Palestinians. Beyond merely denouncing Israel's occupation and expulsion of Palestinians, this dire situation starkly illuminates a systemic injustice where Western countries continue to support Israel, often in blatant disregard of international law and fundamental human rights principles. From the 1917 Balfour Declaration to the present day, Palestinians have been systematically marginalized, dispossessed of their land, and left with no voice or standing, all under the cynical guise of peace. This tragic reality blurs the lines between so-called wars from east or west, revealing a deeply painful historical and humanitarian truth. After World War II, as the British Empire began its inevitable decline and withdrawal, the United States swiftly engaged in a calculated power struggle, employing a soft yet remarkably effective strategy. Instead of direct colonial domination like Britain, the U.S. skillfully utilized a system of alliances and protection to control key regions. In the Middle East, Israel emerged as the most crucial link in this grand strategy. A nascent nation, yet a potent, perpetual source of conflict. Under the banner of protecting Israel from perceived threats posed by the hostile Arab world, the U.S. not only provides unwavering political support, but has also meticulously built Israel into a permanent Western stronghold, strategically embedded in the very heart of the Islamic Middle East. This support is far from mere rhetoric. From 1948 to the present, the U.S. has funneled over $150 billion in aid to Israel, an astonishing sum, the highest amount ever given to any country globally. The vast majority of this aid is military, encompassing cutting-edge weaponry, F-35 fighter jets, advanced missile defense systems, and sophisticated reconnaissance equipment privileges no other Middle Eastern country can even dream of. Furthermore, the U.S. frequently employs its unilateral veto power in the UN Security Council to shield Israel from international accountability, despite numerous international resolutions condemning Israel's occupation. The U.S. openly aims to maintain a delicate balance of power in the Middle East. With Mossad, widely regarded as one of the world's leading intelligence agencies, Israel has also become an indispensable partner of the CIA in monitoring and deeply intervening in the internal affairs of Islamic countries, from Iran, Syria, Lebanon, to Egypt and Iraq. Israel is almost never off the radar of pervasive U.S. espionage and military operations. It's not difficult to discern that whenever a conflict erupts between Israel and Arab forces, be it in Gaza, Lebanon, or even further afield, the U.S. responds with astonishing swiftness, deploying aircraft carriers, bombers, and dramatically increasing its military presence in the Mediterranean, Red Sea, or Persian Gulf. Such actions are not solely about protecting allies. They also serve as a convenient pretext for the U.S. to reassert its military dominance in the Middle East, control vital oil transport routes, and send an unmistakable message to any force contemplating disrupting the Western-imposed order. By establishing a non-Arab, non-Islamic nation with deeply entrenched ties to the West, strategically placed in the very center of the Islamic world, the U.S. has ingeniously created a permanent front that can simultaneously counter Iran, monitor the Arab world, and maintain an unchallenged military presence in the region without requiring explicit consent from any sovereign nation. In Washington's cold, calculating eyes, Israel is not merely an ally. It is a strategic tool, an unsinkable aircraft carrier, perpetually ready to deploy if the Middle East shows even the slightest sign of slipping from Western control. An unstable Middle East is, paradoxically, an incredibly advantageous Middle East for the West. In the grand global political game, the Middle East is far more than just a geographical region. It is a paramount strategic objective. Possessing immense oil reserves, a critically prominent geographical location, and deeply ingrained religious and ethnic divisions, it has long been a fertile breeding ground for Western intervention strategies, particularly those of the U.S. For the past 70 years, the overarching strategy of the U.S. and its allies has never been to genuinely foster peace, but rather to meticulously maintain a state of stable instability, just enough tension to prevent outright collapse, yet constant enough for the West to perpetually retain control. In this cynical strategy, Israel functions as a potent catalyst for permanent conflict. The very existence and flourishing of a Jewish state, entirely propped up by the U.S., in the heart of the Islamic Middle East, is no mere coincidence. It is a monumental, deliberate design. Israel is not only a flashpoint but also a powerful trigger for even deeper conflicts between Sunnis and Shias, Arabs and Ba'athists, and between states and their own populations. Israel's existence has provoked fierce reactions from Iran, Syria, Lebanon, and Palestine, forcing these nations to divert immense defense budgets away from crucial economic development or the formation of regional alliances. And as long as the Islamic world remains fractured and confrontational, the U.S. can effortlessly step in as a mediator, primarily to aggressively strengthen its own strategic interests, especially the control of oil and the unwavering maintenance of the dollar's dominant global position. One of the most breathtaking strategic successes for the U.S. is undoubtedly the petrodollar deal with Saudi Arabia monumental agreement that has fundamentally reshaped the entire modern world economy. The petrodollar, the U.S. imperial gold mine. In the early 1970s, after the U.S. unilaterally abandoned the gold standard, it faced the very real risk of losing control over its currency. In this precarious context, the Nixon administration and Secretary of State Henry Kissinger masterfully devised a brilliant strategy. Instead of backing the dollar with gold, they would back it with oil, an absolutely indispensable resource for any modern economy. In 1974, the U.S. struck a groundbreaking deal with Saudi Arabia. Riyadh committed to selling oil exclusively in U.S. dollars and, crucially, to reinvest a significant portion of its oil profits into purchasing U.S. government bonds and integrating them into the U.S. financial system. In return, the U.S.S. solemnly pledged to protect the Saudi royal family, continue supplying advanced weaponry, and ensure their security against all threats, including Israel. A small but profoundly crucial detail often overlooked is that, at the time, Riyadh was deeply apprehensive that Israel, with its formidable U.S. present military backing, could potentially threaten or pressure Saudi military systems if they ever exhibited anti-U.S. or pro-OPEC tendencies. Israel's very presence served as a powerful deterrent, effectively compelling Saudi Arabia to align itself. The U.S. shrewdly leveraged this deterrent to negotiate an unassailable defensive position. The petrodollar system single-handedly transformed the USD into the undisputed global reserve currency, compelling virtually every nation to hold dollars and conduct international trade in dollars. This granted the U.S. an almost limitless right to print money, completely unafraid of capital outflow, because the newly printed dollars could seamlessly circulate through the massive volume of oil and gas transactions. This is widely regarded as the contract of the century, representing the strongest pillar of U.S. power in both the 20th and 21st centuries, far surpassing even its military might. After firmly establishing the petrodollar platform, the U.S. relentlessly continued its policy of maintaining calculated instability in the Middle East. Smaller, compliant allies like Qatar, the UAE, and Kuwait were transformed into U.S. Oil satellites, enjoying protection through military agreements, lucrative arms contracts, and ironclad security commitments. In return, they dutifully sell oil in USD and meticulously maintain stable foreign exchange reserves. Meanwhile, countries exhibiting independent or anti-Western tendencies, such as Iran, Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon, are systematically isolated, subjected to crippling sanctions, or even outright military intervention. Any audacious attempt to trade oil in euros, gold, or any other currency is met with swift and brutal suppression. Libya's Muammar Gaddafi once boldly advocated for establishing a gold-backed currency in Africa for oil trade and tragically pledged to be a lifeline during a war. Saddam Hussein also proposed selling oil in euros, and Iraq was invaded just a few short years later. The Middle East has never been permitted to experience true peace, not because Muslims inherently oppose peace, but because a perpetually divided Middle East provides the perfect, exploitable conditions for the West to intervene, plunder resources, and maintain its global hegemony. The US has masterfully used Israel as a political weapon, a strategic pawn to exert immense pressure on Islamic states. Through this intricate web, Israel has become inextricably linked to the petrodollar economy, representing a formless power that, at the very least, grants unparalleled control over the world's money. To this very day, these intricate geopolitical games persist. Israel remains an absolutely necessary hotspot for the West. From an external, superficial perspective, Israel appears as a highly developed nation, technologically advanced, rich in historical tradition, and a safe haven for the Jewish people after centuries of exile. However, when viewed through a critical political lens, Israel is not merely a normal national entity, but a profoundly subtle strategic tool of the West in the Middle East. For long, tumultuous decades, Israel has served as an indispensable threshold, a fixed hotspot, meticulously maintained not with the aim of resolving conflicts, but rather to ensure that the conflict itself never truly ends. Firstly, Israel provides the perfect, unassailable justification for the West, especially the US, to maintain a deep and pervasive military and political influence in the Middle East without the need for direct occupation or territorial establishment. When tensions inevitably escalate between Israel and Arab, Islamic forces, the US immediately possesses a convenient pretext to deploy aircraft carriers, bombers, and ground troops to the region. International public opinion often finds it remarkably difficult to oppose such actions when they are cynically framed as protecting allies, maintaining peace, or preventing extremism. Secondly, the very existence of Israel, a non-Arab, non-Islamic country, jarringly situated in the very heart of the Islamic world, acts as a profound anomaly that actively stimulates division within the region. It systematically undermines all genuine efforts to unify the Islamic world, which is already tragically fragmented by factors like the bitter Sunni-Shia conflict, inter-Arab ethnic tensions, and clashes between autocratic military regimes and progressive Islamic movements. While Islamic countries strive desperately to forge regional cooperation, Israel acts as a persistent, irritating bone in the throat, making it virtually impossible for Arab nations to achieve absolute consensus on critical issues. Thirdly, Israel serves as a crucial instrument for the West to maintain a perpetual circle of hostility towards Iran, the only regional adversary truly capable of resisting the overwhelming influence of the US and Israel. With Israel constantly poised to attack or destabilize, Iran is compelled to divert immense resources to defense, thereby preventing their allocation towards crucial nuclear technology development or the expansion of regional influence. Simultaneously, the perceived threat from Israel ensures that vulnerable countries like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Qatar remain utterly dependent on US protection, thereby securing their autocratic imperial regimes and their privileged positions within the global financial system, such as the petrodollar. Finally, maintaining a festering conflict hotspot like Israel-Palestine allows the West to relentlessly extend both its soft power through humanitarian aid, international media, and non-governmental organizations, and its hard power through military and intelligence contracts throughout this volatile region. Every airstrike, every rocket attack, every riot in Gaza's tragic event provides a renewed basis for the US and its allies to re-engage and ensure that the Middle East can never truly dictate its own destiny. Therefore, all efforts to negotiate for peace. Content truncated due to size limit. Use line ranges to read in chunks.